The warrior was left hanging between life and death, betrayed, broken, and forgotten by his own. But as the night fell, a small figure appeared through the canyon mist, a little girl who refused to let him die. Join us now for a story of courage, compassion, and an unexpected bond that would echo through the frontier. I would love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Share it below, join our family, and let's dive into the story. Comanche, a towering Apache warrior with the corded strength of a mountain lion, was suspended by thick hemp rope from a gnarled limb. His wrists, raw and abraded, bled freely onto a slick of alkaline earth below. The dark stain of a deep cut across his flank seeped into his deerskin tunic, each drop catching the pale light like a drop of ink. His body strained against the bonds, a silent testament to a defiance that pain could not extinguish. He took shallow, burning breaths, his obsidian eyes fixed on the shadows. Above him, a black widow spider methodically worked on its web, its presence a small, cold metaphor for his entrapment. "Hurry up and finish it," he rasped, his voice dry and rough as shale. It was a demand for finality, not a plea for mercy. A tiny figure emerged from the gloom, stepping into the moonlit clearing. Alara Vance, no more than 11 years old, appeared a phantom in her oversized, sweat-stained buckskin coat, a brimmed hat pulled low over her face. Her hands, small and dirt-caked, clutched a bone-handled hunting knife, its blade dull but serviceable. Her wide, apprehensive eyes darted between the bound warrior and the whispering darkness. Despite the tremor in her grip, a sliver of desperate purpose ignited her gaze, a spark of stubborn resolve in a girl too young for such terror. She approached the trunk of the cottonwood, her ill-fitting boots scuffing the dry soil. She cast a single fearful glance at the spider, then bit down hard on her lower lip. Her ascent was clumsy, fueled by a frantic adrenaline. Every rasp of her boots on the bark, every snag of cloth, seemed to roar in the unnatural silence. "Go, child," Comanche grunted, a warning more than an appeal. "Run home." Alara shook her head, the hat bobbing, as she reached the branch. The rope groaned under the warrior's weight. Her trembling fingers fumbled, then found purchase, slicing at the tight, blood-slicked fibers of the rope around his left wrist. The tension was immense, and the blade slipped, catching the moonlight. "Hold still, please," she whispered, the words barely audible. She saw the dark, immense shape of him, the raw power held captive. She had to hurry. With a final desperate hack, the rope on his left arm snapped. Comanche's body swung violently, nearly dislodging her. A wave of dizziness washed over Alara, but she clung tight, the warrior's dark, focused eyes momentarily locking onto hers. "Well done, little mouse. A pity your effort is wasted." The voice, cold and laced with a cruel amusement, split the stillness. A teenager, maybe 16, stepped from the deepest shadows. Jared Vance, Alara's cousin, was clad in a dark canvas duster, a sneer plastered on his narrow face. He leaned against a rock, his own knife gleaming. "You were meant to be the bait, not the savior," he drawled. "Uncle Silas has his rules, and you just broke them all." Alara's face paled, the truth crashing down. She had been coerced, a pawn used by Silas Vance, Jared's bounty hunter father, to draw out the famous Apache warrior. But now, with Comanche half free, her path was clear. She set her jaw, severing the last strand of rope. Comanche dropped with a heavy thud, gasping, his body hitting the dirt, but he was free. Jared's smile vanished. "Traitor," he snarled, charging forward, blade raised. Alara didn't hesitate. She threw the knife with a wild, desperate energy. It struck Jared's forearm, deflecting his blow, and tearing through the canvas. He cried out, clutching the wound, his weapon skittering away. "You'll bleed for that, cousin," he spat, his eyes blazing with hatred. Alara grabbed Comanche's arm, her small fingers finding purchase on his buckskin sleeve, and pulled him toward the thicket. He was heavy, his movements sluggish from the confinement, but the fear of capture lent her a startling temporary strength. They stumbled into the dense underbrush, thorns tearing at their clothes. "Run! Move!" Comanche's voice was a low growl of command. They moved toward the faint, steady sound of Serpent River, its cold flow their only chance to lose the hunters. Behind them, Jared's shouts were already fading, replaced by the ominous, growing chorus of tracking dogs. Silas Vance and his men were close. Alara's boots squelched in the muddy bank as they reached the Serpent River. The water was icy, soaking through her clothes, but she plunged in, dragging the wounded warrior with her. "The water will wash the scent," she whispered, her voice tight with adrenaline. Kohana nodded, his gaze sweeping the trees for movement. He tore a strip of leather from his tunic and bound his chest wound, each motion a study in contained agony. The river current tugged at their legs, and Alara, her small hand like an anchor, guided him downstream, sticking close to the shadowed rocks. A branch snapped upstream, a sharp, unmistakable sound. Jared's voice sliced through the night, closer now. "You can't hide forever, Alara. Paths will burn the whole territory to find us." The baying of the hounds grew louder, a chilling symphony of pursuit. Kohana's grip tightened on her shoulder. He pointed to a small grove of stunted willows, their branches drooping low over the water. They ducked beneath the curtain of leaves, crouching in the shallows, holding their breath as a lantern light swept the opposite bank. "Why help me, Shashke?" Kohana murmured, the Apache word a soft rustle in the dark. "You are kin to those who strung me up." Alara's lips trembled. They took my mab back in Silt Creek. They said if I led you here, they'd let her go. Jared and Silas, they are devils. I couldn't let them murder you." Her voice cracked, but her eyes held a steady fire. Kohana's rugged face softened. A child's selfless act, a betrayal of her own blood for a complete stranger, was a debt he would honor. He reached into his belt and produced a meticulously crafted stone dagger, its handle wrapped in leather. "This is not a toy," he said, pressing it into her hand. "You are not a tool. You are a warrior." Alara's fingers closed around the weight of the blade. The hound's frantic cries and the thud of hooves grew imminent. Kohana pointed toward a narrow, rock-strewn cut in the riverbank downstream. "The canyon, now." They slipped out from the willows, wading deeper. As they reached the mouth of the small hidden canyon, a shadow loomed before them, a lone figure on horseback, silhouetted against the pre-dawn gray. Alara's heart seized, anticipating Silas Vance. The rider dismounted, revealing a weathered man in a dusty fringed buckskin coat, a rifle held casually. "Hold where you are," he called out, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. Kohana tensed, ready for a final, desperate fight, but Alara's eyes widened. "Uncle Tobias," she whispered, recognizing her late father's brother, a respected solitary trapper who'd vanished years ago. Tobias's gaze flickered from Alara to the wounded Apache. "What's an Apache doing with my niece?" he demanded, suspicion thick in his voice. "He saved me, uncle," Alara pleaded, stepping forward. "Silas Vance is hunting us. He's the real monster." Tobias's eyes narrowed, but the approaching sounds of the chase cut short his judgment. "Get up," he commanded, tossing Alara onto his saddle, and helping the groaning Kohana mount behind her. They spurred the horse into the canyon, the towering rock walls of Iron Crag closing in around them, as the sounds of the hunter's pursuit faded, but did not die. Alara clung to the saddle horn, the warrior's dagger a strange comfort in her hand. The hoofbeats echoed through the narrow pass of Iron Crag. Alara pressed against the saddle, the stone dagger tight in her hand. Behind her, Kohana endured the bone-jarring ride, his bandages dark and sodden with blood, his pain a steady furnace in the dawn light of 1881. Tobias, riding ahead, his rifle across the pommel, kept a watchful eye on the high, jagged ridges. Silas Vance's hunters, though temporarily thrown off, were tenacious and ruthless. They burst out onto the arid mesa near Pinnacle Butte, the vast, bruised sky stretching above them. "Are you sure about this, Alara?" Tobias's gruff voice cut through the sound of the wind. "Riding with an Apache is a life sentence out here." "I'm sure," she declared, her voice firmer than before. "They want him dead. They want me broken. We run together." Kohana, swaying slightly in the saddle, heard her. He had seen the corruption of the white world up close, but also this rare, fierce loyalty. Tobias grunted, skeptical but resigned, and steered the horse toward a shallow valley where a small herd of wild mustangs grazed near a pool of rainwater. "We need a new mount. This horse can't take much more." Tobias dismounted, motioning for Kohana to stay low. Alara slid down, the dagger ready. Kohana, despite his injuries, moved with an economical grace, his eyes locked on a muscular chestnut stallion at the edge of the herd. He began to chant softly in Apache, a low, mesmerizing series of sounds. The stallion's ears flicked, but it did not bolt. As Kohana slowly approached, his bloodied hand held open, the powerful animal lowered its head. A rifle shot cracked. Dust erupted near Tobias's foot. "Drop it, Vance!" Silas Vance's voice, a gravelly roar of fury, echoed from the ridge. 5 mounted men crested the hill, Silas at the lead, his face a mask of hate. Jared rode beside him, his bandaged forearm tucked into his coat, a pistol in his good hand. The leash dogs strained, snarling like trapped demons. Tobias instantly drew his revolver and fired a shot that clipped the hat from one of the riders. "Get to the stallion," he bellowed, shoving Alara toward the Apache. Bullets whined past, splintering a nearby juniper tree. Kohana, moving with speed that belied his wound, hauled Alara onto the Mustang's back. "Hold tight, Shashke," he commanded, urging the powerful horse toward a cluster of giant boulders that offered temporary cover. Behind them, Silas's riders fanned out, their shouts like the cries of hunting birds. Alara, her hands gripping the stallion's mane, felt a new kind of tears, not of fear, but of primal, desperate determination. She thought of the stories of the Red Sand people that Kohana might share, tales of freedom and the vast unyielding land, and she wanted the world to remember them. "If you're hearing this," she whispered to the empty plains, the words carrying the grit of the frontier, "don't let the bad men win. Listen, and let our story live." The steep, shadowed mouth of a dry wash appeared. Kohana steered the chestnut down, rocks scattering under its hooves. Suas followed, blood staining his sleeve from a new graze, his expression grim. Jared's voice, venomous and close, rang out. "You can't hide from me, little cousin." A bullet struck the Mustang's flank, a glancing blow that sent the animal rearing. Kohana held firm, his body a shield for Alara. As they rounded a corner, a narrow split in the wash appeared, barely wide enough for a horse. "There!" Alara shouted, pointing. Kohana nodded, pushing the Mustang through the gap. The horse scraped rock, but they made it. Tobias followed, his horse snorting as bullets ricocheted harmlessly off the canyon walls. The gap opened onto a hidden, brush-choked ravine, swallowing their tracks. For now they were safe, but Silas Vance's oath of pursuit would not fade with the light. The ravine's thick sagebrush silenced the pounding of hooves, as Alara, Kohana, and Tobias emerged into the deep twilight near Iron Crag, Arizona Territory, 1881. The chestnut stallion's flanks heaved, steam billowing in the cooling air. Alara's hands, small but firm, gripped the stone dagger. Kohana's presence was a steady weight behind her, his breath ragged but controlled. Tobias, blood soaking through his coat, his revolver ready, scanned the horizon. The ravine had offered a brief sanctuary, but their enemies were still out there. Night fell, a vast black blanket studded with glittering stars. Tobias led them to a shallow crevice in the crag, its entrance veiled by tough mesquite. "We rest here," he muttered, his voice coarse. "One eye open always." Alara slid off the stallion, her legs weak, her coat thick with dust and river mud. Kohana, after tending to his horse, sat beside her. He began to speak in a low, resonant voice, telling her the old tales of his people, of Apache raiders who moved like shadows, their lives bound to the unforgiving, beautiful land that Silas Vance sought to claim. Alara listened, the fear slowly receding as the ancient stories wove a fragile connection between their disparate worlds. Tobias, bandaging the chestnut's wound, watched them, his suspicion of the warrior giving way to grudging respect. A faint, unnatural light flickered outside the cave. "Torches," Tobias hissed, his eyes narrowed. He extinguished the small match he was using, and crept to the entrance, his revolver poised. The glow intensified. Silas Vance's voice, cold and sharp as winter ice, cut through the night. "I know you're in there, Tobias. Hand over the Apache dog and the little thief. Your niece can still live." Kohana rose, ignoring the fresh agony in his side, and gripped a heavy, broken piece of slate from the cave floor. Alara, her eyes wide, followed his lead, scooping up a fist-sized rock. Tobias signaled for silence. He counted 5 distinct silhouettes moving through the mesquite. "We will not surrender." Kohana's voice rang out, steady and powerful. The shadows stirred. The attack was swift, a silent rush. "Get them!" Jared yelled, lunging for Alara. She ducked, throwing the rock with surprising force. It struck Jared's unbandaged shoulder with a sickening thud, dropping him to a knee. Tobias fired, the noise deafening in the cave, and a man screamed. Kohana launched himself forward, slamming his rock into the head of another advancing hunter. Alara found herself face to face with Jared, who was now scrambling up, his eyes wild. He grabbed her wrist, twisting it. Alara screamed, then with a desperate surge of strength, she slammed the stone dagger's pommel into his face. He staggered back, spitting blood, dazed. Silas, seeing his son harmed, charged. "You're no killer, girl," he roared. Alara's eyes, cold as the night, held his gaze. She had done what she had to do. Kohana, a grim nod passing between them, tackled the elder Vance, their bodies disappearing in a violent heap outside the crevice. The fight ended with a hollow, brutal quiet. Tobias stood over the scene, his gun smoking. Kohana, bruised and bleeding but alive, helped him secure the 2 Vances with their own ropes. "We move at first light," Kohana rasped, his eyes pointing toward a barely visible trail leading higher into the crag. "North, to my people." Alara clutched the dagger, ready for the long journey, the stars watching in silent witness to the dawn of a new destiny. The dust settled at Iron Crag, and the small defiant light of Alara and Kohana's courage burned on in the Arizona.